There's a lot of chat about values at the moment, and I was talking with a friend recently. We were in my kitchen doing the washing up, talking about values, and I was sharing some of the work that I've done around this with the women that I coach, and just saying how important it really is to get clear on what you value. And my friend turned to me, she's got a dish in her hand and the tea towel, and she says, "Jen, I just don't think I know what I value." And so I thought I'd make this episode today. So if you've ever wondered, what are my values? Or if you feel like you're clear on your values, but maybe you still feel like something's missing in life, like maybe you are really clear on what you want and what you value, but there's maybe a gap between what you're doing and the outcomes that you're getting. I'm going to show you why your values are important, what the 27 core human values are, and I'm going to show you how you can tell whether you're actually living your values or whether they're just a dream or a wish in your mind. So stick around. I'm so excited you're joining me. Hey and welcome. I'm Dr Jen Cartwright. I'm a PhD health scientist and health coach, and I'm here to show you how to reignite your motivational fire so you can level up your health and well-being. So the first thing we'll talk about today is why are values important? And I think back to when I was working with a mentor, this was 3 years ago, and my mentor talked me through an exercise to help me understand what my core values are. And the biggest lesson I got out of it was that there's two types of values. You've got your aspirational values, and these are the values that you know in your heart. We all know what's important to us. But the other type of values are your lived values, and they're the values you're actually behaving. And when there's a difference between the two, you're in what's called a values dissonance. So if you value something in your heart and in your mind that's really important to you, but if you're not behaving it, then you're in a values dissonance. And this is usually when it feels like something's missing. If you're in a values dissonance, if you're not behaving what's really true to you, what's in your heart, then that's your starting point to make a change if you're wanting to make a change in your life. And I think back to, for me, my biggest aha moment around values came when my mentor talked me through an exercise around discovering what's really important to me. So he showed me that there are 27 human values that are core to every human culture. You know, they're across cultures, across times, and there's these 27 values. And he talked me through an exercise where I wrote them down. I wrote each value down on a piece of cardboard, and then I chopped them up. So I've got 27 bits of cardboard in front of me. So there were two parts to the exercise. So in the first part of the exercise, I arranged them in order of what I knew to be true, like the things that I really held in my heart as being the most important to me. The second part of the exercise was to actually look at my life now and look at my days, look at my weeks, and go, am I behaving those top three values? Am I actually spending the time and getting the results on those things that I valued? My husband came in and he looked at the values that I'd put in that first part of the exercise, going, yes, I really care about my kids. You know, I value my health. I value my husband. I value adventure and freedom and travel. And my husband came in and took one look, and he said, is that really how your life is right now? And at the time, I was in a funk. I was in a real mum funk. I had, our daughter was 3 and our son was maybe 6 months. And I just felt lost. I felt really flat. I was working my academic job part-time while I had my baby and toddler as well. We had our dream house. You know, we'd worked really hard. We had this mortgage. We were a few streets back from the lake. We had all these great friends. We had a great community around. But something was missing. And when I looked at those top values that I'd ranked, and it was, you know, freedom and adventure and travel and family, and I looked at my actual days and my weeks, I thought, where's the freedom? Where's the adventure and travel? And even my kids and my husband, you know, I was burnt out trying to still work this academic job, still trying to contribute, still trying to look smart and be good and do the things that, like, I thought I was supposed to do. And as my husband pointed out, he's like, if you're not valuing that, then what else are you valuing? And so I looked down at the list of the 27 values, and one of the values is being thought of as good or smart. And the penny dropped and I cried because I realized my whole life I had been living that as my highest value. I had been, a high achiever at school. I'd been, the teacher's pet. I tried really hard. I'd been really sporty and had done really well academically at school. And what I was finding out was that there's no prizes, there's no rewards for just being good or smart. But I was living my life as if there was something coming. I went from year 12, I got a Premier's Award in my state for my year 12 results. Then I went into uni, I did physio because that was what my marks told me I could do. And then I did a PhD because that's the next thing to achieve for. And all along I thought there was something coming and nothing was coming. And it was because I was unconsciously valuing this, people thinking I was smart or good, and not knowing that I was valuing that. And that's the idea of if you're not consciously valuing and behaving your values, then you're subconsciously valuing something else. And for me, and maybe you can relate to this a little bit, that was this idea of I wanted people to think I was good and that I was smart. I was being this good girl. I was doing all the things that, the teachers and everyone in society was telling me to do. And where I ended up was with a husband, 2 kids, the dream house, and just feeling a bit empty and feeling a bit lost inside. And so sitting at the desk that day, and it still brings back goosebumps, remembering how powerful that feeling was to sit, and I cried. And I just thought, wow, this is what my life has been about. I really thought it was about something, and it's actually been about something else. And from that meltdown, and it was a meltdown, from that was really my starting point for change. And my husband and I have both been on a journey to really start living our values. Okay, and we're both quite aligned in a lot of our values around freedom, around adventure and travel and spending time with our kids, And so for us, our adventure, that was the beginning of our adventure. We sold the house, we took the leap. So we travelled for 2 years, we lived in a caravan, we did a whole lap of Aussie, we had these amazing adventures. And now we're settled, so we're in a house now, but we're still staying true to those core values. And so it's a matter of looking at how can you apply those in your life. If you value things like freedom and adventure and travel, you don't need to sell the house and dive into a caravan like we did. But it's a matter of how can I include things like that in my week and in my days so that I'm getting that taste of freedom and adventure. Because if you don't, and I know what I was doing, I was making my husband wrong. I was making my kids wrong because I wasn't living according to my true values. I was pointing the finger at everyone else, but it was really up to no one except me to make that change. And so that, in a nutshell, is really, that's why you want to start with your core values, because they're like your true north, they're your compass of where are you going in life. And so this idea of goals as well, if you think of goals as being the next mountain that you're going to reach, and the values are how are you going to get there. And it's this idea of you never land there anyway. You might achieve your goal and then you'll shift the goalposts and set your sights on something else. But as long as those goals are in line with your values and the goals are not something that you think you should do or that society tells you to do or that your parents or your family are telling you to do, but if those goals that you're setting for yourself and the things you want in life are truly in line with your core values, then that's the pathway to a self-directed life and discovering your purpose. The next part of today is looking at, well, what are these values? How do I work out my values if I don't even know what the options are? And that's why that exercise that my mentor took me through, he showed me that there are 27 values that are core to all human cultures. And I'll bring them up on the screen, and I've got a free download for you as well if you're interested. And so these are the values here. So there's 27 of them. And they're things like freedom, security, meeting the right person, spiritual fulfillment, wealth, good health, relationships. That's your starting point to work out. Look at that list of options. It's like a menu and go, of all of these, what do I want most and what is most important to me? And I'm totally going to project my own values on you here, but I think there are some values that just have to be in your top 3. You have to be behaving these values or you're not going to be able to get anything else. And for me and my husband as well, health has got to be in the top 3. I've got to be behaving health. I've got to look after my physical body. I've got to look after my mind and my heart and my spirit so that I can do any of the things, so that I can take care of my kids and enjoy the time with my husband and go on adventures and travel and things. And the biggest thing that I've found in the coaching work that I do and also in my previous work as a physio is that healthy people might value 100 things, but sick people just value one thing, and that's to have their health. And so when you strip everything away, when you don't have your health is really the only thing that matters. And so that for me is like a light bulb moment to think, okay, if I'm not valuing health and staying ahead of the curve, so not waiting until I get sick, not waiting until something happens, but valuing your health so that you're staying ahead of the curve and preventing, that age-related decline. So I coach a lot of women over 40 and over 50, and they're starting to see these effects of aging, and I'm noticing them too. Perhaps you're not as flexible as you used to be. Perhaps you really have to work to keep that weight off. I know that the rules change as women hit menopause, and that's a whole other conversation. But this idea of valuing health while you've still got it. And the biggest lesson that my husband and I got from traveling around Aussie is we saw all these retirees, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, who've worked hard their whole lives to finally live this dream of traveling Aussie in a caravan. And they can barely get out their caravan door. They can barely get up and down the steps into their caravan. And so their dream lap of Aussie has now become this trudge where it's, okay, I'll sit around because I can't really get out to the beach. I can't really go for my bushwalks. So I'll sit around and wait for happy hour. That was really hitting home for us that you need to value your health. So have a look at what those 27 values are and really look at what is in my top 3. And again, thinking back to not just your aspirational values, the things that you're wishing for, but also looking at what are you actually behaving, because the values you're behaving are where you're going to be getting your results. So you're only going to get your best results from the things you value the most. And so if health is in your top 3 values, then you'll get the best results for your health, because it's a matter of where are you pouring your energy to, where are you putting your time and your effort into. It's often a matter of if you're wanting health, but if perhaps your body's not quite in the shape that you want, if your mind's not quite where you're wanting it to be, then if you're not valuing health, what else are you valuing? You'll probably be valuing something else subconsciously, and it will be those values that society has imposed on you, maybe your parents, maybe your teachers, maybe even your friends in your peer group. They're those things, those influences that can have you living those subconscious values rather than your true core values. I was speaking with a client the other day. I did her follow-up call. She'd been 6 months on the program that I'm coaching as part of through my University of Sydney research. And she'd joined the program. She'd done the coaching, but she hadn't got the results that she wanted. She said, look, I've been so busy, like work's smashed me. Like she worked in a corporate job and she was finding herself, she had these deadlines, she had these massive projects, and she just simply wasn't able to leave work on time to get out for a walk and to go for her exercise class. She'd set a goal of wanting to be able to run 5Ks, and she said, look, my new goal is to be able to run 500 meters. And talking with her, it became really apparent she still really wants this goal. That the desire was there, the need was there, because she's realizing she's putting on weight and she's not fit and she's not got the body that she wants. But she's valuing something else. And I could hear in her language that not being able to leave work on time at 5:30, and maybe you can relate to this too. I know I've got doctor friends and lawyer friends in the corporate world who say, if you're leaving work at 5:30, it's too early. If you're not staying late and really pushing yourself and grinding, nose to the grindstone, then you're not working hard enough. But so for this woman, she was saying, look, I still really want to do this. My health is so important to me. But in those moments where she thinks, oh, it's 5:30, I need to leave, but I'm going to look bad, she's fighting that discomfort of maybe people are going to judge me. Maybe, my boss will notice and think, oh, I'm not staying late and working my guts out. Maybe my colleagues will think I'm not doing it for the team. What she's prioritizing in those moments is comfort and safety, and she's valuing what others think of her more than her own health. Because if she really knew, right, my health is so important to me, I need to leave at 5:30 so I can get to my class, so I can go for my walk and still get home and cook dinner for the kids, then she would leave. She would still feel that discomfort. She would perhaps be with it and say, no, this is what's really important for me. And so maybe you can relate, and maybe it looks a little different. Perhaps those mornings where you set the alarm at 5:30, you say, right, I'm going to go out for a run, or I'm going to go to the gym. And when the alarm actually goes off and you think, oh, I'm just going to hit the snooze button and roll over. And sure, sometimes that is more important for your health, but I think we know in our hearts when it's, okay, I really need the sleep versus, oh, I'm just so comfortable here. So in those moments, if you're not valuing, getting out of bed and going for a run and doing that for your health and your mind and your body and your mood, when you choose to roll over and hit the snooze button, what are you valuing? And it's probably something like comfort or safety and security. And so they're the moments. It's those. And it's a split-second decision. And it is a decision, it is a choice. But are you thinking in your mind, yes, I'm valuing this, or are you actually behaving it? And it's really your behaviours that are going to show you where your true colours and where your true values are. So now the last part is, well, how do you work out your values? How do you work out what's important to you? And this is a really individual thing. I'm not here to tell you what my values are and project them on you. Although, like I said before, I really think if health isn't in your top 3 or your top 5, then what's the point? How are you going to be able to do those other things that are important to you? And so of those 27 human values, how do you work out what are the most important to you? Well, I invite you to do this exercise like I did a couple of years ago, where I cut out those 27 values and I arranged them on the table in front of me. So your starting point is simply to rank your values. And I've done it here in your handout for you. But there are 3 categories. So values that are very important to you. And these are the things where you think, right, I can't live without. I must have those in my life. Then the second category is values that are important to you. So they still matter. They're just not quite as important as the very important, the must-haves. And then that last category is not important. You think, look, I really just don't value that. I could take it or leave it, and more likely leave it. So that's your starting point. Arrange those 27 values into those 3 categories. And then the next step is to look at those 3 categories, and in the very important and the important piles, look at your results in your life. Have a look at your days and your weeks. Look at what you're doing, so in your routine. Also look at the results that you've got. So for example, if you've put health in that very important to you, and if you know that, hey, my body's not quite where I want it to be, or my mind and my mood aren't really optimized, then there's probably going to be a values dissonance. Then also look at your daily routine or your weekly routine. So what are the activities that you're doing that show that you value health? And these are things, all the things we know we need to be doing for our health. So are you exercising? Are you eating right? Are you cutting back on screen time? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you spending time with your loved ones and your friends and getting that social connection? And if the answer is no, if your week is full of work, it's full of deadlines and priorities and stress, if it's full of perhaps doing things for other people, perhaps you're really out there in the community. I talk to a lot of women over 50 who are retiring, and they're now so busy because they're in all these committees and these organisations and doing wonderful volunteer things. That some of the women I've talked to actually have trouble, going for their own exercise, going to an exercise class because they've got all these other commitments. And so that's the next step to work out how you know what you're actually valuing is look at those things that are very important and are important to you, and can you see evidence of those in your week? And if you can't, then that's really your starting point and an invitation to shift and maybe start thinking about, okay, where could I start prioritizing my health, if that's important to you, or perhaps it's freedom or adventure or wealth or even family. Are you really investing quality time in those things that are most important to you? And that's when things like, okay, that default we often fall into of get home, cook dinner, and then just chuck the TV on. Is that really something you value? Or is that just doing that by default and out of habit? It's those little times during the week that you look at and think, okay, what else can I be doing with that time? Is this activity something I really value, or am I just following the herd? Another example could be going out for Friday night drinks, which is great to have that social connection, that release. But maybe if you're staying for that third drink or that fourth drink, or you're staying a little bit late, are you doing it to value social connection? Or are you doing it out of desire to conform or that peer pressure? Are you really, truly and choosing what you're valuing there? Or is something else in the way? Are you subconsciously valuing something else? And that's where coming back to your core values are really like your guiding light. Stop in that moment and think, what am I truly valuing here? The other way to work out what your true values are is to look at your motivation around them. So in the handout that I've done, there are 4 main levels to motivation. And this is this idea of a quadrant. So there are really 2 types of motivation. There's intrinsic motivation, where you're driven by that internal fire, like that drive of, I just want to do this and I love doing it. Then there's the external motivation at the other end of the spectrum, where you're driven by perhaps like a threat of or a consequence, or even a reward, but there's something outside of you. So there's that spectrum. Then there's, on the other axis, is your reason for change. So people either change out of desperation or out of inspiration. And there's that spectrum along there. So from those 4 quadrants, the lowest form of motivation is fear. So you're driven by an external motivator, you're driven by the fear of punishment or fear of consequences, and you're changing out of desperation. And that's the lowest form of motivation. So when I hear clients say, I should, that's when I know they're in that lowest form of motivation. So then my job is to really draw out their motivation to move up, perhaps into more internal motivation. Then the next level up from fear is obligation. That's when you're saying things like, I have to do this. You're still acting out of desperation, but there's an internal drive of, I really have to do this. And a key example for this is when people get a health diagnosis, maybe pre-diabetes, or if they're putting on weight, they think, wow, I really have to change. And there's an internal drive of, I need to do this. No one else is going to do this but me. But there's still that idea of desperation, or there's still a little bit of fear there. The next level up from obligation is respect. So you've moved up into inspiration. So you're acting out of inspiration, but there's still an external reason. And the biggest one here is your partner or your kids. You think, wow, I really need to get my health sorted so I can be a better dad, so I can be a better mum, so I can be a better partner. That's more powerful than those 2 lower levels. But there's still something outside of you that perhaps if that went away, then you'd lose that motivation. So then the highest form of motivation is purpose. That's when you're internally driven and you're acting out of inspiration. These are those things where you think, wow, I get to. I'm not sure if you've got something in your own life that you can think of where you think, yeah, I get to do that. For me, that's running. And I've got a lot of running friends. And I think we've all, once you get the running bug, you just can't wait to go for your next run. I put out my shoes the night before, I set my alarm, and I'm excited because I get to go running. I know it's going to be hard and challenging, but I know that feeling, that runner's high. And I also know that I'm out running with my friends, so I'm valuing that social connection. I'm outdoors, I'm getting a taste of freedom and adventure. And that's how, if you're wanting to get into that highest form of motivation, that idea of purpose, then look at your core values and link those in with the thing that you're wanting to change. For me, a couple of months ago, I was in a rut around my running. Like, we'd moved here, we'd settled. I was no longer doing these amazing runs through the outback, and now just running on my own. And I kind of was running the same track, and I just started to feel a little bit like, oh, what's the point? Like, I can't be bothered. I'd rather sleep in or stay with my kids. What I realized was that I was missing out. I was missing social connection, because I value that really highly. I value friendship. And also, I can see that I'm a really competitive person. So I value a bit of competition and a bit of, like, getting someone else to push you and compete, and that feeling of, hey, we're both in this together and we're kind of competing against each other. I joined a running group, and that just unlocked this whole next level of motivation for me, because now I get to go running in the mornings. I get to see my friends. I go running. We go these like beautiful places. There's a different route. We run past the ocean, like we see dolphins. I'm connecting with nature. I'm getting all of those other things that I really value in the thing that I'm wanting to shift. For you, if you can look at a change that you're wanting to make in life, and perhaps you're in those lower forms of motivation. Perhaps it's I should get my health sorted, or I have to exercise, or even maybe I want to, like I want to be doing more. To shift that into a feeling where you think, I get to. Look at the other things that you're valuing, and how can you hack those other values and tack them onto this new habit that you're wanting to create. That's how you shift into that purpose, and that you get into flow states. When you're internally driven and you're acting out of inspiration, that's your ticket to flow. That's your ticket to feeling that purpose where you think, wild horses couldn't hold me back from that. Then the final part of that values conversation is looking at your goals. So looking at the goals you're setting for yourself, are they in line with those true core values? Are they things that you actually value, or are your goals things that you think, oh, I should do that, or I have to? And that's when once you've aligned your values to your goals, because it's got to be that way around. Your goals are things that you're wanting to do, and they're maybe a change you're wanting to make in your life. But if you're valuing something else, so if it's that valuing maybe looking good, maybe feeling smart, maybe valuing comfort or conformity, then what are you going to let go of to elevate that value that's in line with your goal up into your top core values, so that you start creating those new habits to move you towards your goal? And even the word goals, like, that can be quite loaded. I was talking to a friend the other day who said, oh, I don't set goals like it. And yeah, it can be, in this hyper-productive, like, capitalist society, a goal is like, right, how productive are you and what are you doing? Even just replace the word goal with habit. What's a habit you're wanting to create for yourself, or a little change you're wanting to make in your life? And is that change in line with your core values? Because if it's not, then you want to shift your values. Don't shift your goal, because if it's a goal or if it's something you're wanting to create, then that's something that you really want to get after. But it's a matter of looking at your goals and thinking, right, if that's not in my top values, what do I need to let go of? That idea of needing to let go of something before you can pick something up. My friend Jazzy said that the other day on her podcast, and I love that, because it's so true when it comes to values, because we often don't realize what we're holding on to. We often don't realize that we're subconsciously valuing something else because of these products of social conditioning that have influenced us to value something else that we don't quite realize. So if you're wanting to work out what your core values are, what's really important to you, and working out what motivates you, and then looking at how to set some goals so you're making the changes you're wanting to make in your life, I've done a free download for you that's called Values Aligned Goal Setting. It'll take you through that 3-step process of working out your core values, recognizing your motivation, and then realigning your goals. The link's in the show notes below. Jump on there, pop in your email, and I'll send it straight to your inbox. You can print it out. I'd really recommend doing that, because it can be so powerful to see in front of your own eyes, what are you valuing versus what do you think you're valuing. So I'd just like to finish by really acknowledging you for spending this time with me today to learn about your core values and what's really important to you, and look at how you can align your goals to those values. This can be a scary step to take. I know for me, when I did this exercise, I was a mess because I realized my whole life I'd been subconsciously valuing something else. So if you've got the courage and the determination to take this step in your own life and give yourself that acknowledgement as well of, hey, I'm doing this for me, because no one's coming. No one else is going to make these changes in your life. It's really up to you. So good on you. I really acknowledge you for being here today, and I look forward to connecting again next time. Bye from me.